I don't really know what we did in that room. I can tell you that we laughed. I can tell you, how we rehearsed. But when something happens like that, when there's that much truth in the room, that much kind of raw emotion and energy, and I remember the jokes we played. But the actual work, I don't know. It's like a blackout.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Jason Isaacs is an actor. He sat down with me in New York City to talk about the work.
I want to start in a strange way with you. I want to make a bold assumption. And if
Wrong. I'll tell you right now.
If I'm wrong,
go on.
If I'm wrong, you can use it as a way to correct me, and that'll get us starting to talk about your process. But if I'm right, it will also be a kind of a jumping.
Let me give you a preamble. I have no process. I have no idea what I do.
This is what I'm saying.
Today I will say something so I sound intelligent because it's your, but I would say something completely different tomorrow, and I'm not sure that I have any fucking idea what I do or how. It's different every time, and it's different day to day.
I should have told you, this was part of my preamble. I wanted to say, if you don't have a process, that is an amazing process.
Nice.
If I'm sitting with you and you don't have a process, then I want to know about this non-process. Fine. But here's my thing with you. You like to say that Angels in America was this moment in your young life where you did this amazing play, maybe the greatest modern play.
Yeah.
And it kind of ruined you for theater. Like, you didn't do much theater after that. But I think that, and again, tell me if I'm wrong, I think you've developed this process of not having a plan as a film actor.
You mean a career plan or
no? Not having a plan for
how to work.
Yeah. And you've cultivated this, and we see it in this movie Mass. There's this aliveness, and I think that because theater needs some kind of plan. I'm using the word plan, it's not a good word. Needs some kind of, you want to avoid that because you're working in a different way now. I'm wrong.
Interesting. No, that's interesting. There's some kernel of truth in what you say, but when you get out on stage, I think you're wrong about theatre in the sense that you may need to plan where you're standing because the lights are on you, and there are certain points, the play itself has a structure, and it's an actor's medium, theatre, as opposed to film. Film, you could shoot things and they're edited in the wrong order, or a scene is taken out. You're not really in control of your performance and where the character breaks or peaks or reveals himself. It's really up to the editor and the director. On stage, you control it for that night at least, and but even within that, it has to be alive, or else it's dead theatre. You should be watching an animatronic if you want that. I had this one horrendous experience years ago doing a play where we sat down for the very first read-through, and the director said, actually, everybody stand up. I know where you're going to be standing eventually, so let's not waste time. I'm going to put you where you're going to be on the stage. And we all sort of didn't realise, was he kidding? And then I started to read, and he went, Jason, sorry, stop there. You won't be able to look at her during this scene. So just don't even bother looking at it because you'll be looking out in that direction. I was just waiting for someone to emerge from the wings with a camera. Surely this is a practical joke. And then I got another 2 lines in. He went, stop. If you pause before that end line and you go, let me just count 1, 2, 3. Yeah, beat of 3 and then go upwards on an inflection. I think it'll really be, you might even get a laugh.
No way.
And I went, dude, we have to go for a walk. This is not going to work. And he said, well, we just got started. And we're going to break for tea at 11:30. And I went, no, we have to go for a walk now. And I went for a walk outside with him. And I said, look, I have to leave the production. He went, what? I said, you are entitled to work any way you want, but what's going on inside that room is the antithesis of what I understand acting and storytelling and theatre is. And it's the first time we've said the lines out loud. We need to find what the scene is about and where we're going to. He goes, but I know the answer. I know where you're going to be. And I went, that's not. Look, I'm trying to be respectful. That isn't my understanding of directing. He went, well, what the fuck am I meant to do if it's not tell you where to be and how to say the lines? And I went, not that, mate. So anyway, I did stay in the play, and we argued all the way through. We almost came to have a fist fight because I continued to try and keep the scenes alive. Because although some things are fixed in the theatre, you still have to be able to hear it for the first time and say it for the first time. And if something works brilliantly one night, you don't do it the same the next night.
Yeah.
It has to be freshly minted. So that isn't true. I think it might be true that when I was a younger actor and nervous, I would want to work out what it was that I was going to be doing the next day, what the scene was about and stuff. And now I don't. Now I want to do the background work and know that I know who the person is, what they bring into the room, and then let the scene unfold. And so I cross out all those things in the script that say shouting, sarcastic, crying, laughing, because who knows what's going to happen. It's always an improvisation. Those things are in there to help sell the script or hold a producer's hand and get money out of people, but it's got to be human. And it is true that if you visited a set and you didn't know about what was going on, I might look like the most amateur person there because I don't know what I'm going to do in the scene. I want to see what the other actors are doing, and I don't learn the lines, even in something like Mass. I half know them. I'm never held up a take. No one's ever waiting for me, and don't have to roll again. But I have a very loose grasp of them. I've always got the sides in my hand because I want to reach for them. I want to find the words. I want to land on them. So the older I get, and when I have the opportunity to do stuff that's really powerful, like in Mass, the more it might look like I'm really not taking the thing seriously, but I take it desperately seriously.
As you get older, is there, I'm just seeing this now in myself, this inability to hold as much memorization as I used to. Like, aren't you worried about that in this process?
It's filming. You never have to do. Mass was an enormous amount of lines to hold in your head, but it's never really about the lines. It's all, for everything that's written down, there's the 100 things you're not saying. There's all the things that you think you'd like to say and stop yourself saying. There's the way you change a sentence in your head. There's the things you're hoping the other person's going to say when they're speaking. When you open your mouth, you don't know if you're going to talk for 2 pages or 2 lines. So it's really, if you build that subterranean structure, if you feel like you know what they're thinking and why they're thinking and how they're responding, then the words come out naturally. Yeah. Unless it's badly written.
Right.
When I can't remember something on set, if I can't get from one bit to another, or I keep stumbling on something, it's because either I haven't made the join in my head, I haven't built the inner world that takes you from one thing to the other, or because it's just badly written.
Yeah.
And all actors have been in things that just are badly written, and then that's when you earn your money. You've got to try and make it work, or if you're lucky enough to work with people who are collaborative, change it. I want to be making shit up when I speak. I want to not know what to say next. Yes. That's what we do in life.
Yes.
I don't want to stick and in artificially. I want to really be finding the thing.
Did you ever go as far as Brando and have the lines in different places and just?
I don't know that frankly was him aspiring artistically. I think it was more to him just not giving a fuck. He'd conquered the world of acting. He thought it was beneath and below him, and he was right. It was. He left that kind of stuff in his rearview mirror. I haven't. So anyway, the original premise was that somehow I had learned that. In some ways, I did learn from. Stephen Delane played Prior Walter in Angels of America when we did it, and it sometimes annoyed me that we would find, the play is utterly brilliant, but it's also full of huge laughs. Massive. You knew whatever was going on, and you go, I've got that grenade. In a second, the whole audience is going to erupt with laughter from tension and from emotion and stuff. And sometimes I'd bounce a line at him that I knew if he bounced back, it got a huge laugh, but he wouldn't. Oh. And it irritated me because I liked the laugh. Everybody likes to get a laugh. Yeah. But I think maybe I did learn something from that because he wanted it to be fresh. He didn't do it to sabotage anything. He did it because he wanted everything to be fresh minted. He didn't want to fall into patterns. Mm-hmm. He wanted us to live it fresh every night. I think I did learn from that. I also learned that's the project in which I learned the most about acting. Everything I've ever known about acting, I learned in that play, because the director would, although we rehearsed for whatever it was, 11 weeks or something, he essentially could have left his direction on a loop, on a tape, and left the room because he didn't tell us where to stand or what to do. He never told us anything about what he thought the characters were going through. he just asks us the same question every time. He goes, "Stop, what are you trying to change?" I go, "Well, I'm trying." He goes, "Don't tell me. Show me. Change something." And he wanted you to change something outside yourself. He wanted you to make the other person apologize, make the other person guilty, make the other person say they loved you. He wanted you to work on, even if you're talking to yourself, change your younger self or something. He wanted you to change something outside yourself. And that ties in with this fact, which is a lot of the best performances I've ever seen were off camera. I've seen people do things off camera that are just so human and real, and then when the camera gets pointed at them, and I include myself here, they go, "Oh, this is the bit where I'm meant to crack. This is the bit where I'm meant to get angry. This is the bit," as opposed to wanting to have an effect on the other person, wanting to get an answer to their question, wanting to, something. That's a lesson to learn for myself always,
That's a huge lesson, because if you really deconstruct that, that means that you are you're basically talking about like this solid playable action that is not tied to anything else, that you're just in.
Yeah.
And that you're doing, like, that is where all acting should be, in that. It's when it's tied to other things that
it's
is
when
not...
you're tied to you saw the stage direction that goes, cracks here, or it feels like, when you're talking, so many things are going on in my head. I'm thinking, oh, I've got something to say. Is he going to stop? Oh, I've got to change the thing I'm going to say. When I'm talking now, I really want what the audience can't see, which is I want you to be nodding. My dream scenario is that you go, holy fuck, this guy's just a Yoda, right? What a genius. He's got pearls of wisdom. And my nightmare scenario is that as I'm talking, I see that you're looking at your phone and checking your text. Somewhere between those two scenarios, the drama lies. Yes. But it's all to do with what I'm getting out of you and what I want out of you, and nothing to do with, this is the bit where I show I know stuff about acting.
Before we talk about mass, I want to talk about this one thing that you talk about a lot that's really important, which is that when you were given agency as an actor, you have these wonderful stories of you coming alive in ways that you weren't necessarily alive before that.
And you're given ownership of
ownership.
The part. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, ownership. And
there's a lovely segue into mass with that.
Okay,
if you want to know.
Tell me.
So Fran wrote this extraordinary thing, seemingly, insane project, the kind of King Canute style. Like, who writes a film with 4 people in a room? And I read it, and it was magnificent. And I had no idea if it was going to be watchable in any way, but I knew it would be a big experience, and was terrifying in terms of, could I be that honest? Could I make this real, and could I tell this story? So I jump in and said I'd love to do it, and it's quite inconvenient. I'm going to Australia to make a film. I've been away for months. I want to go home and see my family. There's some other job starting afterwards, but at my own expense, I can't remember. I flew instead home from Australia. I flew to the middle of nowhere to make this film. But before I went, we had 2 days in New York, and 2 days is not enough rehearsal, and everybody wanted more, but I just wasn't available. And we get there, and he's been living with this thing for years. He's created this incredibly intricate, beautiful tapestry. And he did that thing that great directors do, and it takes balls that I just don't have. He gave us ownership of our parts. He goes, let's stumble our way through as much as we can in 2 days. A lot of personal stories got told, so we all kind of dropped our guard. We were very vulnerable with each other immediately, like some kind of rehab group or something. And then we made our way through, and I said, I think Jay he cares more about this. He doesn't care about that. He would do the, I don't know, I was grasping him. I hadn't really put his shoes on. I hadn't really lived in his heart, but, and the other 3 did the same. And he was like, and instead of going, wait, hey, I wrote this thing. You need to come to an accommodation with what's on the page, because he allowed the thing to grow organically, whether or not he agreed with the changes, whether or not he thought it was right. He just allowed everybody, Martha, to go, this is what she's thinking, this is what she wants. And Anne and Reed, and we just walked into it. It's a lot to give ownership, to share ownership like that, and make changes and adjustments. And so by the time I came back a few weeks later to start shooting, I felt like, Jay was partly something I'd built. I knew that the things he was obsessed with, the inner dialogue he had. It's a huge part when you're acting. What's your inner dialogue? And I know what he was thinking. I know what he was wanting. I know where that changed for him, where he was ashamed, and that was partly because Fran had handed over the keys a bit, and it takes a lot. I mean, first time writer director, you're essentially paying for or scraping together money to make this film, and yet you make seats at the top table for your actors, and it's heroic.
And it makes me think, like, I think the reason why there's a confusion about this is because there's also this assumption or this theory or whatever that when you have a strong vision, you have to, be solid and stick to it. And
by the way, that's true, but
right, exactly.
It doesn't satisfy you on the set. If you think that a scene should be played a particular way, and the actor just isn't doing it the way you want, you've got to, there's a pragmatic element to filmmaking. Like the light, where we shot, the light went down at 5 o'clock and the room is full of windows. And you can either hold out for the version you had in your bedroom the night before as a director, or you can get the very best version that the actor can believe in and make believable on camera and work with that, and it will evolve. And, unless you're Kubrick or David Fincher or someone, that's how most people make films. And it's such an imperfect process making films anyway. Do you know that you were right in your bedroom? Do you know that this person's right or better? There's so many different elements that go into it. When all the ley lines cross and it turns out great, like Mass did, you're just so fucking lucky. It's unbelievable that you've danced through a minefield without knowing where the mines were. You didn't get blown up and you end up the other side with something beautiful worth watching.
Right.
So I've seen directors do that. I've seen directors hold on to the line readings that they had in their head and take younger actors, because I won't be given line readings, but and force them through these molds that they don't quite own or understand. And the thing ends up stilted. An actor's just got to believe what they're saying.
Yes.
And if they can't quite believe what's on the page, unfortunately, find something they can believe and let them do that, because the camera can always tell if you're lying.
This is why I think I'm stuck as a filmmaker right now, because I want to allow for that process with the actors, but I don't want my babies to die.
Sure. Yeah.
There
is no answer. It's every single time. It's an approximation and an imperfection and compromises or not. And then I remember being on a set with this director, had a fantastic opening shot, a big wanna that a bit like Kurosawa does a lot of close-ups and wides in the same shot without cutting. People walk into a close-up and stuff. And it was just a great conception, but we didn't get it. Or rather, we got that and no coverage. And then the producers went back and said, we have no coverage in that scene in the garden. We have nothing. And he was never hired again. It was an episode of TV, and because it spent the day trying to make his vision work, and at some point you got to cut your losses or go, that's what I'm going to get from this actor, or it's my fault. If nothing good is happening on the camera, then it's my fault. I've got to find some other way to talk to the actor. The only way really to direct actors is to ask them questions. Even if you're behind the monitor, you know the answer. Peter, you're an actor. You could come up and go, you're missing the point. This is how to say the line. And they might get it. But if you come up and go, what is it you want when you come in the room? Who do you think's got the power? What do you want her to feel? And let the actor give you an answer, pretend to be surprised and impressed by it, and they say, let's go for that. Yeah. Let's go down that road.
This is like micro
the actor takes
micro ownership.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
It makes a huge difference. Funnily enough, I worked with a friend of mine who had come mostly not from acting, from documentaries on a miniseries, and so we prepped it for months, and we got very friendly. And then first day we were shooting, there were some other big name people in it, and we went for dinner that first night. He said, how was I? I go, what do you mean, how was I? You're the boss, you wrote them, directed, it's great. He goes, yeah, but come on, you're my friend. How was I with the actors? And I went, if you could avoid the word don't, it's really helpful. Because if you come out and you go, don't be so angry in that scene, or maybe don't tell me, then all the actors are trying to do next take is not do something. They're trying to please daddy in the monitor. They think they didn't get it right.
Yes.
And so they're already not going for anything. He goes, well, what can I say instead? I mean, they're getting it wrong. I go, you come out from behind the monitor, you go, that was brilliant, fantastic, we've got that now. Let's do another one. Any ideas? And if they do or don't have one, you go, how about how much do you want him to know that you're upset? And they say, well, I go, okay, let's maybe hide it more. Really work on hiding it as much as you want to show him that. I go, that's a thing to go for. But what you're actually telling them is to do less.
Yeah.
But it seems like something to go for. So the next day we go to shoot, and he comes out behind the monitor all day, every day, for every take, with every actor, and goes, "That's brilliant, fantastic, we've got that. Hey, let's go one more, you got any ideas?" And then we go for dinner that night, and he goes, "How was I?" And I go, "Oh, you've got to vary the vocabulary a little bit." I mean, the principle is fine, but, change it up. But I think that's true. And by the way, I say it about other people, I need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brad Whitford, that brilliant actor, says that when a director approaches, they say cut, and they walk towards you, you think, what does he say? There's 3 things. He goes, "Fuck you, I'm shit." Okay, what? 3 things. They're walking toward you. See them walking. "Fuck you." "Oh God, I'm so fucking useless." Yeah. "All right, what is it?"
Yeah.
And that's what actors feel every time. So we're very, very fragile. I don't know, it's funny. I find myself embarrassed talking about acting generally. I don't know, it's so, everybody does it differently, and people get in some different ways. Some actors go off and they write whole biographies for their characters and stuff, and they sit and they meditate, or they're looking at pictures of their dead relatives. And, maybe I should be doing that stuff, but I try and do nothing. I try and be an empty vessel.
Okay, but we just saw Mass, and it's almost like whatever you did, like keep doing that.
Well, I don't really know what happened. So I saw Mass for the first time with an audience the other day. I don't really like watching myself. I just see all these physical, I see myself aging almost. And I forgot it was me because it's such a brilliant story. Yeah. And I don't really know what we did in that room. I can tell you that we laughed. I can tell you, how we rehearsed. But when something happens like that, when there's that much truth in the room, that much kind of raw emotion and energy, and I remember the jokes we played. But the actual work, I don't know. It's like a blackout. It's a black. I don't know. People. There's a scene in which I get very upset and angry, and journalists want to talk about that scene as if I went to work that day and went, "Oh, this is the day that I do the 100-meter sprint." Or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. I think all the 33 years of acting professionally, and 5, 6 as an amateur before that, they just kick in, and you just try and forget. You try not to think. I try to get out of the way of Jay, of his character. I didn't know if I was going to laugh or shout or cry, or some days I cried all day, and some days I felt ice cold, and I think if I'd thought about it, it would have gone. If I would have frozen up like walking a tightrope or something. If I'd even stopped to try and take a look at myself, it wouldn't work. And that's it's like those magic eye pictures. Those magic eye pictures where you look at something, and if you relax your eyes and focus a foot beyond it, you see a picture. Yeah. You try and do it, you can't do it.
Yeah, that's right.
So when I go and teach sometimes at drama schools, and I think they might think I'm going to talk them about acting, I say the one thing, which is focus on what you want from the other person. But then I do practical stuff like you can ask for a sausage bag and for a mark so your toes hit it. The first AD is the guy that says you can go home, like really practical things. And I think they're waiting for me to talk about I don't have anything interesting to say about how to become another person with that other person's needs and hearts. You just got to free yourself and let it come in somehow. And it's rare. That's why I talk about Angels in America with such reverence. It's rare that somebody tells a story with such richly realized, 3-dimensional, unpredictable human characters in it as Mass. Yeah. They're normally 2-dimensional, and your job is to try and make them look 2.25. That's about it. Yeah. But Mass, when it's great like that, you just don't. I don't know if you bring lots of skill or no skill. You just try and get out of the way of it.
But isn't it true though that if it was directed by that director that the story you told, right. The one who wanted to, really. Oh,
the guy who did line readings of a movie like a marionette.
Yeah. Like 4 amazing actors, a director on some variation of that kind of thing. Like we would not have this experience with this movie, right?
This is Fran Kranz being a director of brilliance.
What did he do? Like what? How did he set that stage?
I don't remember him. Not to be rude. I mean, he did it well enough that I don't remember a note. I don't remember the cameras.
Is this because he's an actor?
Who knows? No, I've worked with actors that give you line readings all day. No, it's because he's Fran. You could say it's because he had no time. Just got to get the scene in the can, but it's not like he would have settled for less. It's because he got it right. I don't know why. I don't know what he did. I don't remember. So much of it I don't remember because we were in a bubble for 2 weeks. We were in this very intense, very emotional bubble. We laughed, we cried, we overshared with each other. We felt like family. The one thing I do remember is that I have this accent in it, this Midwest accent. I built a whole kind of background for him and stuff. And I don't write it down. I'm not like those people who write a book, but I had a whole place he came from and a job he did and everything. And I was in my accent from the second I arrived. And I mean, all day and all night, both days of the week. I think I had one day of the weekends off. And I went to play tennis, actually. And when I left the tennis club, I suddenly realized, oh shit, I was in my American accent all day. Like those people, maybe they think I'm American, maybe they think I'm weird. I don't know. I would speak to my wife and kids, not every day, but for a minute. And every other second, I would be this person. I wasn't being Jay, I was being me with American accent. But right at the end, we become as close as maybe it's artificial intimacy, whatever. It feels like real intimacy and real love in a way with this group of people that you have to trust. Right at the end of the rap party, we all made little speeches, sent them. They were all drunk, I don't drink, but we were making these little speeches to each other. And I suddenly realized mid-speech that I didn't need to be American anymore. And so I just switched into my accent and it sounded weird in my mouth. It felt really, it didn't feel like me. I felt like I was playing somebody in a Evelyn Waugh novel, And I looked at Fran, less Fran actually, I looked at Reed and Martha and Anne, and they were really upset. They felt betrayed. They felt like I was an a mole or a police spy. Like they got furious at me. I mean, really, genuinely not mock angry. And they felt like I had somehow cheated them. Wow. And I had to go back into my American accent until I left Idaho. Wow. I remember that, God, that just came back to me.
So do you believe, like what you're saying to me syncs up with what I believe, and this might sound a little crazy. And you might not believe it, but I believe that with stuff with some things, that actors are given the voice of the voiceless, mystically. And I believe that you
just lost me. What are you talking about?
I believe that
it's just
in certain situations you can make fun of me.
I want to burst your bubble. It's unfair. But
it's okay. But I want to just tell you this, and I believe this with what you did. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize. I love the notion that there is some mystical other thing. I'll tell you, when I was a law student, I went to study law at university, and I fell into an audition drunk, and then I just found my people. I found the world I wanted to be in, and I never stopped doing it kind of addictively. But there was a drama school up the road, a real drama school, the Bristol Old Vic Drama School. I was at Bristol University, and I did plays with those people from the Old Vic. And we took them to the Edinburgh Festival, did a bunch of other stuff. And even though we were contemporaries, I always believed they were different on a cellular level. They came from a different universe because they were actually going to be artists. They maybe came from families where people did that. I didn't come from a family where people did crazy shit like that. People did jobs. My dad had worked with his hands when he was a kid, and his kids were going to do better. They were going to be professionals in suits and, make their way in the world. And the notion that you would do storytelling or painting or music or something those people were not like me genetically. I thought there was something mystical and magic. I continue to think that all the way through drama school. Even when I first started working, I thought I'm an imposter and I'll be found out. I still think that when I work opposite, when I look at Anne and Martha and Reed, in the scenes sometimes I had to go, Jesus Christ, they're so fucking good. Oh wait, the camera's on me. It happened with Saoirse Ronan. I remember doing a very, very intense scene with Saoirse Ronan, thinking, that's some of the best stuff I've ever. That is real. I'm just a guy who pretends. That is. Oh shit! It's my close-up.
But this is working for you.
But so I don't buy the mystical. It's
don't
not.
Ever lose it.
It isn't. There is no mystical, magical thing. It's a practical thing. What happens in this film is that somebody wrote something brilliant and beautiful and powerful, and we were lucky enough to step into that slipstream and ride that wave. I'm mixing so many metaphors here. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm the same actor in things that are poorly written or don't convey three-dimensional stories. I try as hard. I just don't get to bring all of my humanity to it because it just isn't warranted. It isn't. What's written is required to be one-dimensional, two-dimensional. So I do that to the best of my ability. So I don't know that something. It starts with the script. Not the words, not the dialogue, but the story. Like this is an amazing story. These things happen. I've always been fascinated by restorative justice.
Mm-hmm.
The South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, you know, even in Britain on a much, you know, less profound scale, when Brexit happened, people keep asking me to do podcasts, oddly enough, and which I fancy. But the one I wanted to do was go around Britain and find someone who believed the very opposite to me, believed that it was, you know, anti-immigrant, who believed that Britain should be separate from Europe, and ask them where they got their facts from, and, you know, could we find any common ground about what we think was true, and then we would go and research and find economists or you know, people whose figures and data we trusted, and see if we drew different conclusions. Because I wanted to be in a room with people who thought the very opposite to me. I wanted to be in the room with racists. I wanted to be in the room with, you know, there's a Middle East peace project that I'm involved with, AllMep, which brings together all these grassroots groups. They get people in the room with each other who have previously been trying to kill each other. And the Forgiveness Project in Britain is run by a woman around the corner, a wonderful woman called Marina. And I've seen the IRA bombers with their victims and stuff. And so when you set up a story that is so powerful and has such potential for drama, all of the normal acting show-off shit goes out the window. Like you better not bring that in the room. You better get out the way of the power of the real people who do this stuff. And there's a kind of, you feel this pressure to be more authentic than you are normally, and not doing it, and not bring any tricks. So I don't think anything mystical happened. I think it's a practical thing, acting. You know, it's just, you have to not control it.
But you
have to let your animal instincts come out.
Yes. But you must believe that people that were affected by similar events are going to find something more in this movie than I did, who doesn't have children at all, even. You know what I mean?
don't. Actually, I don't think that, because don't tell me that you don't know what hatred is, blame is,
I do.
fear is.
I do.
Miscommunication. I don't want to pry into your personal life, but like anyone who's been in a marriage or a relationship knows what lying to each other is, or thinking everything is the other person's fault, or, you know, or relying on them, you know, hating them 1 minute and loving them the next. Those are the things in this room. The thing that happened 6 years ago. They don't bring what happened 6 years ago into the room. They bring what happened that day and that morning. You know. There are people who came back from Auschwitz who lived full lives, full joyous lives. I don't mean they forgot. You don't forget things like that.
Right.
The great psychologist and therapist Esther Perel, you know, who's author and podcast and stuff. She grew up in a town in Belgium with a lot of Holocaust survivors. She said there were two types of people: the people that didn't die and the people that wanted to live. These people have come into this room in mass because they want to live. They want their lives to be better. That's a desire. You know, they bring that desire. And Anne and Reed's character, they want to help. They want to be of service because they think they've got something to offer. So there are people in this world who've endured unimaginable tragedy, loss, and trauma, who you know, who managed to make a life. Doesn't mean that they are shallow or uncaring or, you know, reckless, but, you know, I met the great Desmond Tutu. A man full of joy and laughter who's witnessed such terrible oppression, but he was reaching for the best of what he can make of the world. Dalai Lama, whose people are all oppressed, and, you know, still wants to bring joy and experience things joyously. And so, you know, these aren't the Dalai Lama, and, you know, they've come into this room because they are tortured, they've ground to a halt, they're paralyzed. But they're reaching to have a better life. They're reaching to not be weighed down. And when any of us wake up in the morning, we face a choice, not that it's in our control, you know, without helpful tools, but do we want to feel very sorry for ourselves and destroyed by the past and by the things we're fearful of? Or do we want to be grateful for what things we do have? And it sounds easy. I don't mean to be patronizing, but I've met soldiers with, you know, who've endured terrible injuries, who are so grateful that they can still see, or that they have one arm. And other people can have a much more minor ailment and feel that their lives are ruined. And that attitude is all flexible. If you're lucky enough, if you're blessed enough to be able to have access to either the tools or the mechanisms or people, people can shift that. And by the way, that's the most interesting part of acting for me. I get to shadow people. I'm so curious about people because I don't know how the fuck to be, or I don't know how to navigate my life, and I don't know how to wake up and feel grateful. But I'm on this relentless hunt, I get to shadow priests, politicians, drug dealers, soldiers, victims of shootings. So many different people have opened up their lives to me and share in a way they wouldn't share with a journalist. And I find that, if anyone's listening who wants to be an actor, I don't know if it even plays into the acting that I do, but that access I get to other people's inner lives is such a privilege. I love, that's one of my favorite parts of the whole process.
If I ever need to get emotional in a scene, which sometimes I have nightmares about, right? Because I have no skills. But let's just say I had to. You've given me something now. I could just think about your face in the last scene. I get emotional right now. I don't know what that is, man. I'm not telling you to tell me what. I want you to tell me about that day, though. Something had to happen here. If you know this is the ending, you're a storyteller. Something has to happen here with you. In your face, I'm seeing something there that is touching me. You did something. It's servicing something.
Do you know what the last scene with the choir? The very last moment.
Very last moment.
It's the first thing we shot. It's the first thing we shot. I hadn't done any of the film. I mean, I knew what the film was going to be. I didn't know what I would leave the room with. I knew there was this massive hour-long dialogue, and I didn't know what mood I'd leave the room in. I didn't know whether I would have been crying or laughing or withdrawn or what. And so it was. I had to make some interesting choices there and hope that they worked when it was cut together. I got upset. I got moved. I don't know. When I see a script and it goes cries here or shout, I think I wish I hadn't seen that, because I can't make that happen. There are people who can do it. People who can turn the taps on. And I don't think of my kids or my dead mum or something like that. I try and be in the moment, and sometimes I can and sometimes I can't. Every scene I've ever had around kids makes me weep. I remember doing a scene in a series that they called Case Histories, this detective show, and my kid comes to me and says, she was going to move to New Zealand with my divorced ex-wife, and I object strongly, and I come home and the kids run away from my mum, and she's sitting outside my house. She goes, "I'm not going, Dad. I want to stay with you." And in the script it said, "Don't be silly, you go. I want you to go. You'll have a great time. And you just write to me and tell me, if you're happy, then I'll be happy." So the kid's there, and I start doing the scene, and the character is called Jackson, and I start crying. And I go, "You go, and if you're happy, I'll be happy." And I'm sobbing. And the director goes, "Cut. Okay. Nice work, Jason. Let's do one as Jackson, shall we?" Because it was completely inappropriate. And by the way, the kid would go, "Daddy, you're crying your eyes out. You're obviously not happy." But then there's scenes that I'm meant to be upset and I'm not upset. And in many instances, so I don't know how you get to wherever you need to go to. What I do is I try not to put any pressure on myself. And if I feel nothing, that's okay to feel nothing. There's that famous experiment with the Russian director, intercut.
Khrushchev effect, something like that.
Right. You intercut a neutral face with whatever other footage, and the people watching it project all kinds of things onto that person. I don't know what happened that day. I don't know I didn't know what the film was going to be. I didn't know if what we shot would cut. So, you're bringing to it a lot of what you have felt. And sometimes low budget films or big budget films. Big budget films get to reshoot. You just got to make a decision and go for it boldly and hope it works. And with a low budget film, you're stuck with it. And with a bigger budget film, you can always reshoot. Or you try and give the director choices. So that was, it was an odd one. I remember thinking, holy fuck, this is the climax in some ways, the entire film, and I just don't know. I think this will be right, but I don't like to plan, as we've been talking about. So anyway, sorry I took that away from you. I took that joy away. There was nothing. But even if we'd shot in order, even if that was the last day, I wouldn't have planned anything. I would, I remember my brother coming to screening of something, and he's a very smart man. And he said to me, "Why did you pull that face when she said this thing?" And I went, "What? Why did you pull that face?" I go, I don't know. I'm not planning what I do. Maybe I did when I was younger. I hate working with people who do. I hate working opposite these mostly younger people who have there's a performance they worked out in their bathroom, or if they're really young, with their parents, and nothing you do affects it. They're just not in the scene with you. Or people who ask a question don't want the answer. So this acting is always a dance. And if you're not alive to what your partner's doing, you're not in the scene, and the moment's dead.
Jason Isaacs, thank you so much.
Thank you. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.